Hey guys, it's Viejo here again, and we are at the end of September. I think this is the 29th or so. It's a Friday. And I did some casting today, a couple of different molds that we're going to use for upcoming Moldy Monday videos. They won't be up for 3 or 4 weeks. I'm kind of got several of them stacked up and ready to go. But I frequently get questions about my powder coat process and how I do it, and so I'm going to show you a little bit of video today about my process, and you'll see this very similar to what most other folks are doing. Now, these are very small batches that I'm doing here today. You know, 2 different bullets of maybe 25-30 bullets a piece is all, but it's enough to show you the process and the equipment that I use. And even if I'm doing a lot more than that, I do the same thing and just more bullets in the tray at a time and more trays full through the oven. So let's take a look at how this all works for me here at Casa de Viejo. Let's talk first a little bit about the powders themselves. First of all, this stuff is not designed solely for us bullet casters, all right? This is, powder coat companies make this stuff for use on automotive parts and all kinds of other materials, metals mostly, that want to be colored with a more permanent type of pigment than just paint would be. Okay, so it's baked on, and most of it's a polymer type material that's going to heat up and soften and flow and then bond to the surface. There are a number of different companies who make this stuff. These are the 3 that I use most frequently, and of the 3 I use Eastwood the most. I like the fact that we can get it in these half-pound containers, so you don't have to buy quite so much at a time, particularly if it's a new color and you want to try it. You don't want to end up with a full pound of it. A pound of powder coat will literally coat thousands of bullets, you guys. Okay, so I like Eastwood's products. We'll talk a little bit in a minute here about which powders are going to work for you, which won't. Okay. Columbia Coatings, the only one of theirs that I've used is this one right here, and this is a spectacular powder coat for bullets. It gives a really true chrome looking finish to your bullets. And then I also use Prismatic. Okay, they've got a number of colors that I like. This was one of my favorites, this bronze chrome. All right. This stuff is literally like talcum powder, and it will blow all over the place. When you're doing your powder coating, you want to do it in a calm environment, and you want to be careful about handling it roughly because it'll go up into the air, it'll get all over the place, so be careful using it. I don't think you need to go as far as wearing a mask as long as you're careful about how you move this stuff from one container into your shaker container, for example. Okay, if you're careful about that, you can be okay, but you want to prevent this stuff from going aerosol on you. All right. As far as where do you go to get this stuff, you can go directly to the company, any of those 3 companies that I mentioned, you know, Eastwood here, for example, or Prismatic, or Columbia Coatings. You can go directly to their websites and buy directly. This stuff, at least Eastwood, you can actually buy from Amazon in their half-pound jars that I showed you. A little bit more expensive than buying it directly, but if you're an Amazon Prime member, you're going to get free shipping. It probably would be a wash. So there's where you go find this stuff. And I recommend, again, getting a small amount first to try it, see if it's a color that A, is going to work for you, and B, if this powder coating thing is going to be something you want to do in the first place. As far as colors that work and don't work, mostly the solid colors are your best bet. When you start getting into ones that say anything about being translucent or a vein, and sometimes even the ones that have a metallic component to them, are more troublesome. Specific colors, white and yellow, tend to be difficult to make them work. We've all had problems with those two specific colors, even in solids. There are a few out there that will do a good job for you. If you're just kind of getting started, my recommendation is to go get yourself some Eastwood Ford Light Blue. That is a battle-tested, tried and true color. It works really well each and every time. If it doesn't work for you, it's your fault. Okay, not the powder coat's fault. You did something wrong, because it just works. But there are myriad other colors. If you're unsure, ask one of the guys that you know is out there powder coating. I've tried a lot of different ones. Some of them worked and some of them don't. So, and whatever colors you select, guys, it's important that you keep them dry. Keep your lids on tight. Okay. Keep them in a place where they're not likely to be exposed to a lot of humidity if possible, okay, because moisture will wreck them really fast. All right, let's talk now a little bit about the gear you're going to need. Obviously, you're going to need an oven. You'll see mine's an old POS. I've used it for years now, and it still works. You're going to be dealing with hot materials, so you're going to want some gloves. These are those cheapies from Harbor Freight, and they work fine for me. Some kind of a spoon. You can use just an old plastic spoon. CW Longshot showed us about these bartender long handle teaspoons. They're really good, especially for dipping down into the powder coat containers. That way you don't get your fingers in there, and it doesn't blow powder up all over the place. I stand my bullets up. Not everybody does it that way, and so I choose to use these long forceps. That's a Harbor Freight product. They're cheap. To do that, and you'll see me doing that here in a minute. You'll need some kinds of baskets. Some folks will actually use these baskets to do their powder coating in and just dump the bullets in there. I stand mine up on parchment paper. But these baskets, you need a basket to put into the oven with your bullets in it. You can use trays. Other folks use the silicone ice cube trays with the real small holes in it, particularly with longer bullets that won't with a narrow base that won't stand up well on parchment paper. Those ice cube trays work really good. But you need something for a sifter basket, and you'll see me doing that. We don't just powder coat the bullets and stick them right into the oven. The excess powder has to be sifted off. So you need a basket to do that. And again, something to put the bullets in when you put them in the oven. And this is just plain old parchment paper. As far as containers that we're going to use to do the actual coating, we like a plastic container of some kind. I have been liking these plastic 1 quart mason jars. They don't do a whole lot of bullets at a time, but that suits my needs. Okay, if you're going to do a lot of bullets at a time, you need a bigger container. But these are working fine for me. You can pick these up off of Amazon. You can use other types of containers. Let me show you. Okay, just for example, here's a couple of other kinds of containers that I've used successfully. Okay, mayo containers, peanut butter. These take quite a bit of work to get them cleaned out, but the end result is a container that's going to work well. Even a plastic peanut jar has worked well. Again, none of these are going to hold a whole lot of bullets at a time, but you can shake up 20 or 30, 40 bullets depending on what caliber and size they are, and process those and dump some more in there. The advantage of these, of course, is that they're cheap. Okay, freebie basically. And I tend to mark the lids of these. If it's a color that I'm pretty certain I'm going to use over and over again, I just keep using the same container. You can see that the plastic itself will start to collect that powder, and it actually kind of gets rubbed into the inner surface of the plastic. And then if you were to try to go in there with another color later, you're going to get a little bit of blending. So I single purpose these. I think you can probably clean them out and let them get good and dry, and then do it again. But whichever way you go, a brand new container or one of these, recycle type deals. I've come to like the round containers best to do my shaking part of the shake and bake process. And I learned this trick from C.W. Longshot. He'd been using these, and the process is that we kind of, if you're looking at on the end, we're doing a shake like this, okay, kind of a rotational shaking. And that slides those bullets all around the inside, creates a lot of static. And that's what's going to help our powder coat adhere to the metal. I've used square containers in the past, all kinds of different stuff. When we first got started with this, there was talk about, well, it had to be a number 5 plastic. I don't think so. I think you can use just about any plastic, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. Okay, it all seems to work okay for me. Now let's get all this stuff out and put it to work. So I keep all of my stuff in this cart. Those are all of my containers down here for, you know, my shaking containers. I've got drawers full of powder coat. Okay, and you know, when you're first starting this project, you don't need all of this stuff. Find yourself convection style oven, toaster oven. You want the convection part. It's got a fan. It's going to circulate your heat better in there. Okay. And I think that you could probably get your baking basket, your sifter basket, your gloves, your spoon, your forceps. I think you could get all of that stuff and just put it in there with your 1 or 2 jars of powder coat that you're going to start with, and that would be your whole. This is just a Harbor Freight cart that has that side shelf on it that folds down out of the way. Quench bucket set up and ready to go with water already in it. Having a strainer there is helpful when it's time to pull the bullets out. I am preheating these bullets. I have my oven set at about maybe 125 degrees or so. They should just be warm to the touch, not so hot that you can't hold them. Okay, and that's going to help them. It's going to help the powder stick to them a little bit better. If they're too hot, then the powder will melt as soon as it hits it, and that's no good. Okay, just warm to the touch. That's it. Takes about maybe 10 minutes or so, depending on how many. So getting set up and ready to go here. I've got my powder. Okay, today we're using this ruby red. It's a nice coater. Works really well. It's one that I use frequently, so I've got a dedicated container here, so I don't have to rinse it out or clean it every time I use it. These are inexpensive. They're quart plastic mason jars. You can get these off of Amazon. They're fairly inexpensive and they're reusable. A couple of tools. I got a spoon for dispensing my powder. Okay, teaspoonful is enough for say 20 bullets usually. Okay, easily. And then I've got these long tongs that I'm going to use after I sift the bullets off here, which you'll see me do. I'm going to use these to stand the bullets up on end. Sorry for the noise, guys. We've got the mower out there today. And the whole thing I've just got set up over some newsprint type stuff here. This sheet here is a glossy material that I'm going to use to dump the residual powder back into my container for the next batch. It slides, the powder slides off of this easier than it does this kind of stuff. Okay. The baskets, both this one and this one, these are desk drawer organizers. Sometimes you can find these at the dollar store, okay, but office supplies have them, and they're inexpensive also. They work really well. When it's time to add my powder, I'm just going to use about that much. Again, I'm only going to put 20 bullets in here at a time, and that should be enough. Okay. And as soon as we're done transferring powder, we don't leave these containers open to the air for very long. Okay. Get these guys covered up as soon as absolutely possible. We don't want moisture from the air combining with those powders. I am preheating these bullets. I have my oven set at about maybe 125 degrees or so. They should just be warm to the touch, not so hot that you can't hold them. Okay, and that's going to help them. It's going to help the powder stick to them a little bit better. If they're too hot, then the powder will melt as soon as it hits it, and that's no good. Okay, just warm to the touch, that's it. Takes about maybe 10 minutes or so, depending on how many are in there. Okay, so my bullet batch is in here. I've been in here long enough to get heated up at our 125 degree temperature or so. Meantime, the top of this is starting to warm up also. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these out of here. And they're not too hot to handle at this point. One batch is going to go on top and stay there, and I'm going to turn my heat setting back over here to the 400 degree mark, okay, and give that a good 10 minutes to heat up in there to my desired temperature. Meantime, these guys are going over into the tumbling container. Just dump those in there. We're going to put the lid back on and give these guys a shake, rattle, and roll. And then circular motion. You can kind of tip your container back and forth as you do that to kind of distribute that powder. After a few seconds, we look down in there to see if they're covered, and we see a couple are not quite coated enough. Some are coated better than others, so I'm going to shake it a little bit longer. Okay, after shaking for about another 20 seconds or so, we have them pretty well coated. You can see a couple of bare spots, but that's okay. That's going to fill in as that powder coat begins to melt. It will start to flow. Okay, the shaking that we do is to establish some static electricity between the bullets and the powder, and that's what makes the powder adhere. Okay, so what we do now is we're just going to dump these out into our shaker basket, our sifter, okay, and it's hard to do with one hand holding with the camera, so bear with me. So we're going to shake this out and sift off the excess powder, and we shake them pretty hard. And again, you see what looks like some bare spots, but again, that's okay. That stuff is going to flow out and cover all of those in. All right. And we're just using parchment paper to stack those bullets on. That works well for me. There are other ways to set those bullets, okay, on, but there's the non-stick aluminum foil. This stuff is cheap though, and it works really well for me. You can get the cheap stuff from the dollar store too, and it works just as well, really. And you don't need to use a fresh sheet every time. I'll use one side of this 2 or 3 times and flip it over and use the other side 2 or 3 times before it starts getting kind of funky looking. And little bits of powder coat will stick on there, and they may adhere to your bullets. Okay, when we get to that point, it's time to get rid of it. That stuff right there is probably time to toss that sheet. Okay, now we're just going to take our tongs and stand these up. Okay, and as you can see, this goes pretty quickly. I guess as you can see, I don't know if I take that over there so you can see it. Okay, so that's the process. I'm going to get all of these put over there. All right, here we go. We're ready to put these into the oven. And this is not a huge amount of bullets. If you have a big batch going in there, you got to leave them in a little bit longer, but we're going to run these for right at 20 minutes at 400 degrees. Okay, 2 different bullets, again, 2 different molds that I cast today, and just for simplicity's sake, I'm doing them all the same color. If you have bullets that are really similar in profile, that's not a particularly good idea, because then you got to sort them all at the end, but we don't have to worry about that. These are easy to tell apart, so into the oven they go. Okay, so we've got our little cheapy oven fired up, ready to go. Okay, I ran this for several minutes, okay, about 10 minutes at the 400 degree mark, and I have calibrated this with a oven thermometer so that when it says 400, it's right at 400 degrees. Okay, this is an old Oster oven that I bought at a secondhand store for $3.50, and I've used it for a number of years. It's still going strong. Looks like hell, okay, but it still works. We'll drop our bullet tray full then into the oven, and we've got it at 400 degrees. 20 minutes will be long enough for this particular batch. If you use a lot of bullets, you got a lot of lead in there, it'll soak up all of that heat really quickly before the temperature starts to go up. So you need to leave them in a little bit longer. The rule of thumb is 20 minutes after you start to see the flow out. Okay, in other words, after that powder coat starts to turn glossy on you. Okay, here we come out of the oven. Remember, we got two different bullets in here. Okay, on the left is the 429667, and there on the right are the 452460. Remember, we talked about those little bare spots on the surface and how they were going to all fill in anyway, so that's what we mean. Okay, and then we're going to dump these in the shaker first to cut them loose from that parchment paper. And in they go. And we'll let those sit there, guys, for 10-15 minutes or so with that size of a batch. If there's more of them in there, then they got to set a little bit longer before those bullets will cool all the way through. And as soon as these have had time to cool, we'll just pull them out of the let them drain. This is California, we don't waste the water. Okay, it's going to go on to a couple of plants back here. And if I've got a nice sunny day like I do here today, I'm just going to let these air dry out here in the sun. If you don't have a sunny day, you know, you can kind of put them on a towel and towel dry them off and then just let them sit overnight. When they're dry, you can go ahead and size them. I like to size them as soon as possible after casting. Okay, then we got a little bit of cleanup to do. Any residual powder, I dump it. I used to try to save it and put it back into the container, but I don't do that anymore. I think sometimes the stuff, particularly in my environment, can pick up some humidity, and I don't want it back in there. And we're only using a teaspoon at a time, so anything that's left is not that much. We need to wipe this off, okay, and get that clean, because the next time we do a powder coating, if we use the spoon and we're trying to do white, we don't want to end up with pink, right? Okay. Same thing here with our sifter basket. Okay. I just rinse this off with water, let it air dry, and that's nice and clean for the next time, and I don't get any residual picked up on my bullets. And also with my forceps, I'll just wipe those off. At the end of the project, I'm just going to wad this whole thing up and make a giant bindle out of it and throw the whole thing away. You may have a little bits of residual powder here and there on your surface area. Just wipe that up with some paper towel. If you dampen it a little bit, it's even more helpful. But that's going to go in there, and I'm just going to wad that up and toss the whole thing. Okay, so there's my whole mess. Okay, all containerized, ready to go in the trash can. Easy peasy. And after we've got our bullets powder coated, quenched, cooled, had a chance to kind of settle down a little bit, we're going to conduct what we call a smash test, and you can do this on the garage floor or whatever. But take your hammer and just come down here and swat the daylights out of this. I can't do it one-handed, I don't think, so I'm going to pound this down flat to about the thickness of a nickel or so. So it's 3 nickels. The point is, what we're looking for is to see if that powder coat stays adhered to the lead or whether it's chipping off. If it's chipping off, then your process was a failure and you don't want to use those bullets. Okay, melt them back down and try again. So that's the smash test. And that's flat enough. You don't have to go any farther than that. All right, there it is. One thing I forgot to mention is that it's fairly important to handle those bullets with your fingers as little as absolutely possible until you get them powder coated. You know, oils from your skin will tend to keep that powder coat from sticking. So try not to handle them very much, if at all. You know, if you can avoid touching them altogether between the time you cast them and the time you put them in your shaker bottle, that's best. Okay. And the idea about preheating them has worked out better for me than not preheating them, even on what you would normally think is a warm day. You know, getting up to somewhere 115, 120 degrees or so seems to really help that powder adhere to the bullets. So that's a good idea as well. Some people quench, some people don't quench. I like to quench mine. It does add a little bit of hardness to the bullet. And the whole thing about should I quench immediately after casting or not, I don't quench right after casting. I tested a whole bunch and found out that, at least the way I operate here, that quenching after casting and then powder coating and then quenching again didn't give me any significant improvement over going right from casting into the powder coating and only quench once. So I quit doing that quench right after casting. It just means you got to let the bullets dry, completely overnight or in an oven or something before you go to powder coating. It'll waste of time for me. So that's up to you whether you want to do that or not. What happens is that when you put them in the oven to powder coat, that process re-anneals the lead, softens it back up. So any hardness you gained by quenching after casting is going to get lost in the powder coat process, but reset when you quench them in the water after that. So you can test your own, see how it works out. There's 2 or 3 different scenarios. You can, quench after casting and not quench after powder coating, or you can not quench after cast and quench after powder coating, or not quench either one, or quench them both, and you try and see what happens and what works best for you to get to the hardness that you need. So that's going to do it for this one. If you have more questions, go ahead and comment down below. I'll try to answer them as I am able to. But for now, from the Viejo bench, that's all she wrote.